September 17th, 1944. A sound rises in the skies over the Netherlands, first from afar, then from all directions. The roar of engines fills the sky. Dutch villagers step out of their homes and look up. What they see is something they have never seen before. 17,000 paratroopers, all at ease, from the same schema descending to the ground. This is the largest airborne operation ever carried out up to that point in history. British, American, and Polish troops are dropping into the heart of the Netherlands. The objective: to capture 8 bridges, to open the gateway to the Rhine River, and to penetrate deep into Germany. The plan looks perfect. In fact, it's so perfect that General Montgomery, who devised it, believes the war will end before Christmas. But there is something in the plan that no one wants to see. Intelligence reports indicate that 2 German panzer divisions are stationed near the Arnhem Bridge. The officer who prepared the report issues a warning. Photographs are presented, but higher command ignores this information because the plan is so beautiful, because everyone is exhausted, because they want to end the war. And that bridge, the Arnhem Bridge, will prove to be one step too far. This battle takes place between 2 forces. On one side, Allied forces, the American 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions, the British 1st Airborne Division, and the Polish 1st Airborne Brigade. Ground forces are supported by the British 30th Corps. On the other side, German occupation forces in the Netherlands and panzer units reorganizing in the region. Dates: September 17th to 25th, 1944. Duration: 9 days. Location: a corridor stretching approximately 100 kilometers from the south to the north of the Netherlands. This line connecting the cities of Eindhoven, Nijmegen, and Arnhem formed the backbone of the operation. The operation's name consists of 2 parts. Market refers to the airborne component, while Garden denotes the ground forces advanced northward. Market Garden. This is the combination of the 2. A small but critical note: this operation took place just 3 months after the Normandy landings. Allied forces had liberated France, crossed into Belgium, and reached the German border. The end of the war felt within reach. And this feeling, this sense of urgency, became both the creator and the undoing of the operation. Field analysis. One word suffices to understand the Netherlands: flatness. Northern Holland is one of the flattest landscapes in the world. Endless plains of fields, canals, and dikes. No trees, no hills, no cover. Every movement, every vehicle, every soldier is visible in the open. This is both an advantage and a disadvantage for everyone involved in the fighting. But the real problem is the roads. In this region of the Netherlands, ground forces can only move along a few main roads. Because both sides of the roads are marshland or canals, tanks cannot leave the road. This means a convoy moving along a highway, and this convoy is extremely vulnerable to attack. That is why bridges are everything. If a canal bridge falls, the road stops. If a river bridge cannot be taken, the advance ends. 8 bridges must be captured in sequence throughout the operation. If a single link in the chain breaks, the entire plan collapses. Arnhem, however, is the northernmost and most critical bridge. It spans the Rhine River. If this is taken, the gateway to Germany's northern plains opens. But it is also the farthest point and the closest to German forces. Geography worked in the Germans' favor during this operation. It was ideal terrain for the defender. For the attacker, however, it was a one-way, fragile trap with no easy way back. Force comparison. When the operation began, the Allied forces appeared numerically superior. 17,000 paratroopers, backed by the tanks and infantry of the 30th Corps, along with air support. On paper, the plan represented an overwhelming force. On the German side, however, The situation initially appeared weak. There were exhausted units withdrawn from France and reorganized, along with scattered defensive forces in the region. Allied commanders had calculated that the Germans could not regroup so quickly. But this calculation proved wrong. Near Arnhem, at that very moment, the 9th and 10th SS Panzer divisions were resting and re-equipping. This information had reached Allied intelligence. There were photographs, reports had been written, but there was no will to halt the plan. And here, one of history's greatest acts of willful blindness took place. Intelligence officer Major Brian Urquhart repeatedly warned higher command about the German tanks in Arnhem. Eventually, the commanders decided he was under excessive stress and sent him on mandatory leave. His warnings were filed away. The plan remained unchanged. This decision cost the lives of thousands of people. 9 days later, preparation phase and command structure. The architect of this operation is Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, the same man who won the Battle of El Alamein. But this time, Montgomery presents a very different approach. Hasty, ambitious, and blindly committed to his own plan. Montgomery's goal is not just the bridges. He also wants to win the ongoing strategic debate with Eisenhower. He needs this operation to prove his thesis of a single decisive strike rather than a broad front. This personal motivation influences his military decisions. On the American front, the 101st Airborne Division is commanded by General Maxwell Taylor. The bridges in and around Eindhoven are their mission. The 82nd Airborne Division is led by General James Gavin. The critical Waal Bridge in Nijmegen is their target. The commander of the British 1st Airborne Division is General Roy Urquhart. The mission in Arnhem has been assigned to him, and Urquhart faces the toughest task. The farthest bridge, the least support, and the nearest German forces. In the ground forces, General Brian Horrocks commands the 30th Corps. His mission: to advance 100 kilometers from south to north, linking all the bridges. According to the plan, this advance was to be completed in 2 days. In reality, it took 9 days, and they never reached Arnhem. On the German side, Field Marshal Walter Model is the regional commander. On the day the operation began, while traveling by car, he personally witnessed the paratroopers landing. He immediately returned to his headquarters to organize the defense. His swift response shaped the fate of the operation. Chronology of the war. September 17th, 1944. The skies open. 1 p.m. An unprecedented sight in the skies over the Netherlands. 17,000 paratroopers are descending from hundreds of planes and gliders. In the first few hours, the operation proceeds as planned. Around Eindhoven, the 101st Division captures the bridges. In Nijmegen, the 82nd Division establishes positions. But in Arnhem, the first problems arise. Radios aren't working, and German resistance is organizing much faster than expected. September 18th, the first crisis in Arnhem. The British 1st Airborne Division attempts to reach the Arnhem Bridge, but SS Panzer units confront them within the city. Only a small group from the division, approximately 700 men under the command of Colonel John Frost, manages to reach the northern end of the bridge. The rest are trapped in the city. The radio failure has paralyzed communications. The chain of command is severed. September 19th to 20th, the Seesawes, Nijmegen Bridge, and the Daring Crossing. The 82nd Airborne Division and units of the 30th Corps must cross the Waal River at Nijmegen. The bridge is under fire from the opposite bank. General Gavin makes an impossible decision. The soldiers will cross the river in rowboats in broad daylight, under full frontal fire. This crossing is one of the most striking scenes in the history of courage. Many do not make it across the river, but those who do take the far end of the bridge. September 21st, Frost's defense collapses. Colonel Frost and his 700 soldiers, holding the northern end of the Arnhem Bridge, have been holding out for 4 days. Out of ammunition, with no supplies and no reinforcements, they are slowly forced to retreat. The bridge falls into German hands. Meanwhile, the 30th Corps is still unable to advance from the south, encountering German resistance at every point along the way. September 22nd to 24th, the Battle of Oosterbeek. After losing the bridge at Arnhem, the British forces retreat to the nearby town of Oosterbeek. A defensive position is established here. Every house is a fortress. Every street is a battlefield. The troops hold out for days, hoping for reinforcements, waiting for help. But help does not come. September 25th, withdrawal order. Operation Berlin. Command finally accepts the reality. Arnhem cannot be taken. A nighttime operation is launched to rescue the survivors. Operation Berlin. Crossing to the opposite bank of the Rhine. Approximately 2,000 soldiers are rescued. But of the roughly 10,000 British soldiers who landed in Arnhem, 8,000 are left behind, killed, wounded, or captured. Strategic and psychological effects. Operation Market Garden failed. That much is clear. But debates continue regarding the extent and significance of that failure. Strategic outcome. The Arnhem Bridge could not be captured. The plan for a rapid advance through the northern plains of Germany collapsed. The war did not end by Christmas 1944. The Western Front reached a stalemate, and the Ardennes offensive began in December 1944. What would have happened if Market Garden had succeeded? Germany's Ruhr industrial region would have remained open. A direct route to northern Germany would have been opened. The war might have truly ended by the end of 1944, and that would have meant the lives of millions of people. But it didn't happen, and the responsibility for this continues to be debated. Was Montgomery's plan too ambitious? Why were intelligence warnings ignored? Why couldn't the 30th Corps advance quickly enough? These questions are still seeking answers in the writing of military history today. The psychological impact, however, was profound. The resistance of the British 1st Airborne Division at Arnhem stands as a tragic example of heroism in the military history. 8,000 soldiers never returned, but they held out, under impossible conditions, for 4 days. For the Dutch people, Market Garden was both a source of hope and devastation. Southern Holland was liberated, but Northern Holland remained under occupation. Tens of thousands of Dutch people lost their lives during the Great Famine of the winter of 1944 to 1945. This pain left a deep mark on the collective memory of the Netherlands. And it is also worth noting, every year in September, the Dutch hold commemorative ceremonies in Arnhem and the surrounding area. They have not forgotten those paratroopers. They never will. Market Garden remains one of the most analyzed failures in military history. But one must ask, was this operation merely a failure? Eindhoven and Nijmegen were liberated. Southern Holland regained its freedom. The 82nd and 101st American Divisions completed their missions. Only the final bridge, the Arnhem Bridge, which was one step too far, could not be held. Montgomery later called it a 90% success. What the soldiers at Arnhem would have said to that assessment is unknown. Colonel John Frost and his 700 men held out for 4 days at the end of a bridge, facing tanks and artillery until their ammunition ran out. This is one of the purest examples of courage in military history. This page of history tells us this. Even the best plan collapses if it is led by those who refuse to see the truth. Ignoring intelligence, making hasty decisions, silencing warnings. These are mistakes made not on the battlefield, but at the command table. And it is always those on the front lines who pay the price for these mistakes. The Arnhem Bridge still stands today. Cyclists, pedestrians, and these cross it every day. No one passes by without thinking about what that bridge has witnessed, but most do. We remember. In our next video, we return to the Pacific. 1942. After Midway, Japan had tasted its first real defeat. But surrender was not in their vocabulary. America's objective was clear: to block the path to Japan step by step. And the next target on that path was a small group of islands that would open the flight route to Tokyo. It wasn't revenge for the Doolittle raid. It was the strategy itself. See you in the next video.